What's up, digital marketing agency owners? On today's video, I'm really excited to unpack a concept that is really one of my favorite strategies for landing clients, for building your authority, and consistent flow of new appointments into your agency. So if that sounds good and you're eager to learn how to get a more consistent deal flow and really position yourself as the go-to expert in your space, you're going to want to watch this video. So this concept is what I call the monthly webinar method. And over the years, this has been the one tried and true strategy that we run every single month in our agency that keeps us prolific, that keeps us out in front in our niche, and keeps our pipeline full. Let me explain why and kind of how this works. When you think about the way that you market yourself as an agency owner, like the strategies that you use to get prospects' attention, to get them to raise their hand, to get them to ultimately find out who you are and maybe even someday meet with you one-to-one. Usually we're going to do some form of, maybe we do some cold email. We get a list of prospects in the industry and we send them a cold message. Probably we join the association. If we're smart, we're in a niche, right? And we join the national association in that niche and we get the list of members, the names, emails, phone numbers, and we kind of reach out to that group. And then probably at some point we start doing some marketed lead generation. Maybe it's Facebook ads or Google ads for our own agency. And over time, we've got a list of prospects, of people that we've got their names, their emails, maybe we've got their cell phone numbers and their contact details. But usually, once the sequence runs, once that initial outreach has kind of run its course, it just kind of sits there in a stagnant place, right? We've got all of these prospects that we've picked up over the years, but either they bought or they didn't buy, and now it's kind of run stagnant. And really what we know and what we determined over our years in our agency is, in order to not make that be a stagnant list that goes nowhere, that is basically useless, first of all, we got to touch them. We got to touch our database on a consistent basis. What we found is there's a sweet spot where you want to be contacting your prospects in your database somewhere between 2 and 3 times per week. And you might say to yourself, well, that's way too many times. Everyone's going to unsubscribe. The reality is, with the way deliverability is, with as many messages as your prospects are getting day in and day out, that probably amounts to them seeing you once a month. So you've got to be consistent. You've got to be touching the database on a consistent basis. Secondarily, you've got to add value to the database. You can't just email them every day, hey, you want some help with your internet marketing? Hey, could you use more leads? You have to actually give them information that they would want to look at, that they would want to read, that they would perceive as high value. We have to nurture that database, and then ultimately, we've got to offer to help. Now, give them useful information on a consistent basis that usually leads to, hey, and if you'd like some help with this, if you'd like to get similar results, let's schedule a time to talk. Let's schedule a strategy session, right? Now, we know that that's what we need to do. And if we do that on a consistent basis with all of the people in our world and the people that are coming in on a consistent basis through marketed lead generation, maybe the lists that we're acquiring for cold outreach and the associations as new people join, we can continue to add more and more value to prospects over time, and that will ultimately lead to booked sales and booked appointments with our ideal clients. But this becomes a challenge. Like, how do you come up with that many messages? How do you add value and not be obnoxious to the list? Well, I want to tell you the shortcut that we found, and really what we do is one monthly topical webinar can drive the entire engine that you need in order to touch the database, to add value, and to be the perceived authority within your industry. And I'll kind of explain why. There's something powerful about doing topical webinars. So what I'm not talking about is one of those webinars where you're gonna give a little bit of value, 10 minutes of information, and then like 30 minutes of a pitch, right? Because nobody wants to see that. And ultimately, you can only do that once, right? People will show up for that once and be like, okay, I didn't like that. But if you're doing a good webinar every single month on a topic that your prospects would find interesting, and you make it all give, like where they're like, wow, I learned some new things, I got some new strategies, I got some new information that I'm going to be able to use to grow my business, well, that's powerful. And so you want to come up with new, relevant topical webinars that you can promote, that you can put out on a monthly basis. And what's cool is, this is going to help you grow the database, like in other words, more prospects on your list, and it's also going to help you nurture the existing database. So when you do a webinar, we'll talk a little bit about some syndication ideas and how you can take the webinar and kind of put it out there at a lot of different places. When you put out great content on YouTube, on iTunes, on your blog, and you can do that all from one webinar, That's new content that's going to be discovered every single month. That's going to draw people in to your funnel. Because if they see your information and they find it valuable and they get back to your website and they opt in for whatever lead magnet you have at the end of that content, that's new people coming in every single week, every single month to your content. But it also helps you nurture the database. It solves that problem we're talking about where like, okay, I know I need to touch them again and again, but I don't know what I would send or how I would send or how I would add value. Well, there's something powerful about a live event that's happening at a specific date and time that gives you a permission to be able to send an invite, a couple of invites. Hey, I got this thing coming up. I'm going to be talking about how to generate better leads online for your roofing business. It's going to be Thursday at 3. Hey, it's coming up in a couple hours. Be sure to log in. You can send them a couple of messages about the webinar, and then after the webinar, of course, you can send the replay. You can send a couple of ones. Hey, in case you missed it, here's the recording. Here's one little piece of the webinar that's really, really useful. And so when you're doing this on a consistent basis, you're coming up with reasons to show up in their inbox, to show up on their social feed, maybe even to show up in their mailbox on a monthly basis multiple times in a value-added way. So hopefully this makes sense, right? If you do one webinar per month, you're going to ascertain a lot of value from this. So really what we're talking about with the monthly webinar method is we're trying to develop a systematic approach for creating new content and nurturing our database. And really, again, this is the ultimate content lever. I've been kind of doing this in my agency. I was able to share it at Traffic and Conversion Summit a couple of years ago. And it's really a powerful concept because, again, it gives you a reason to email your database multiple times, right? Invite them to the webinar, invite them right before the webinar starts, and then send them the replay afterwards. That in and of itself is 3 touches. It also drives multiple streams of new content, right? Because every time you create a webinar, really what you're doing is you're recording a video, right? You get the live experience, but then you also record it and you can syndicate that, right? You can put it up on YouTube. You can load it as a blog post with the video and a transcription. You can load it as a podcast episode and put it on iTunes and all of the different podcasting sites. And then you can take the slides and put them up on SlideShare. And while you're at it, you can be posting about it on social media. You can post the replay on social media. It creates like a vicious storm of activity that's going to make you appear to be prolific in your industry, right? And so hopefully you get this. Give me a yes if you're tracking with me, if this makes sense. Be sure to hit the like button if you're enjoying this. But the reality is, if you do this on a consistent basis, there's no way but for you to become looked at as one of the go-to experts in your niche. And so really what I want you to understand and what I want you to get is this a very highly leveraged activity. Because you're doing one live webinar, you're getting at least 3 touches to the database, and you're creating at least 6 pieces of content. It's hard to come up with content. It's hard to create new videos, to come up with new emails, but if you know there's one anchor event every single month that you're going to organize your messaging around, you're going to organize your follow-up around, it simplifies it. That's why it's so high leverage. So I really believe that one webinar per month can drive your entire content and lead generation engine. I've got a very, very deep dive training on this that walks you through, how to set up webinars, the types of webinars to run, how to promote your webinars, and then how to syndicate them for maximum effect. It goes about an hour and 10 minutes, so I can't cover all of it on this video, but I've created a short list for you here where you can go to sevenfigureagency.com/webinars. sevenfigureagency.com/webinars. You'll get a deep dive training as well as my workbook that walks you through exactly how to set this up and implement it in your agency. And my promise to you is if you can commit to one webinar per month, you can have a consistent flow of new prospects. You can position yourself as the go-to in your industry. You can have people looking at you as the expert in your space. So go grab the extra training on this. And if you got value, if this was something useful, please post in the comments, hit the like button, and please be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Grab this now and I'll talk to you soon.